the trade station floated in open space, like a city made of glass and metal. Lights from 1,000 docking bays shone in every color, reflecting off curved walls and long windows. Ships of every shape rested in their assigned ports. Some were smooth and silver. Others were rough, covered in armor or glowing symbols. The station was neutral ground, a place where deals were made and power was shown without war. Today was special. The central exhibition hall was packed. Creatures from dozens of worlds filled the wide floor, standing, floating, crawling, or hovering on soft gravity fields. Their voices blended into a low hum of different sounds. Everyone had come for the same reason, the unveiling of the four-dimensional scanner. At the center of the hall stood a raised platform. On it rested a tall structure made of dark crystal and shifting light. Rings of energy rotated around it, bending in ways that hurt the eyes if stared at too long. Thin beams of light moved through the air like threads, forming shapes that changed every second. Several tall aliens stood proudly beside the machine. Their skin was pale blue, their eyes large and reflective. They wore long robes marked with glowing symbols of authority. These were members of the ruling coalition, the most powerful group in this region of space. One of them stepped forward. His voice echoed through the hall, translated instantly into every language. "This device," he said, "is the greatest achievement of our science, a scanner that sees not only space, but time. Not only what is, but what could be." The crowd reacted with awe. Some gasped, others leaned forward. A few recorded the moment with their own devices. "With this," the alien continued, "we observe 4 dimensions at once. We see possible futures, we detect threats before they are born. No rival can hide from us." He paused, letting the words sink in. "This technology cannot be copied. It cannot be simplified. It requires minds trained from birth. It is beyond lesser species." A few aliens laughed softly. Others nodded in agreement. Near the back of the hall stood a human. His name was Evan. He was average in every visible way. Medium height, simple dark clothing, no symbols of rank, no visible weapons. He did not push forward or raise a device to record. He simply watched. While others stared at the glowing scanner, Evan watched the operators. 3 coalition technicians stood at control panels near the base of the machine. Their hands moved carefully through the air, interacting with invisible interfaces. Their faces showed focus, but also tension. Evan noticed something strange. Every few seconds, one of them would pause. Another would adjust a setting. A faint flicker would pass through the scanner's light rings. Small, but real. The lead alien continued his speech. "Our scanner reads probability streams and temporal layers. It requires constant mental alignment. A single mistake could fracture the data."
As if on cue, the machine gave a low hum.
One of the light rings wobbled. The technician nearest it stiffened. "Minor instability," another said quickly. The alien speaker ignored it and raised his arms wider. "This is why only we can operate it. No machine can replace trained minds. Automation would destroy the balance." Evan frowned slightly. He leaned closer to a nearby display, pretending to read the translated text. In truth, he was watching the data flow. He could not see the raw 4-dimensional output, but he saw how the information was broken down for the audience. It looked messy. Too many layers, too many manual corrections. Too many warning symbols flashing on and off. The scanner hummed again. Louder this time. The light threads twisted sharply, then froze. A sharp tone rang out. The technicians froze with it. For a moment, the hall went silent. The alien speaker turned slowly, his confident expression slipping. "What is happening?" he demanded. One technician spoke, voice tight. Temporal feedback loop. "The probability buffer is locked." Another added, "We are attempting recalibration." The machine shuddered. The rotating ring slowed, then stopped completely. The light threads collapsed into a dim glow. Murmurs spread through the crowd. "This has never happened before," the speaker said, trying to sound calm. Evan tilted his head. He watched as the technicians worked faster now, their hands moving in sharp patterns. Error symbols multiplied on the display screens. The scanner gave another tone, deeper this time. A warning message appeared above it in bright symbols. "System desynchronization detected." The alien speaker's face tightened. He raised his hands again, forcing a smile. "A brief interruption," he said. "Remain calm." But the audience was not calm. Some stepped back, others leaned in closer. A few aliens exchanged sharp words. Evan took a step forward. No one noticed at first. The focus was on the machine. He stopped just short of the platform's edge. He studied the warning symbols, his eyes moving quickly. It was not a hardware failure. That much was clear. The scanner was overloaded. Too much manual input. Too many corrections layered on top of each other. It was trying to predict itself. The machine gave a sharp crackle. A small arc of energy jumped between two rings. The technicians pulled their hands back in alarm. "We are losing alignment," one said. The alien speaker snapped. "Fix it!" Evan cleared his throat. The sound was small, but close enough. The speaker turned sharply, annoyed. "What is it?" he demanded. Evan hesitated for half a second. Hundreds of alien eyes shifted toward him. "I might be wrong," Evan said, voice calm, "but why isn't this automated?" A beat of silence followed. Then laughter. Not loud at first, just a few sharp sounds. Then more joined in. The speaker stared at Evan, disbelief clear on his face. "Automation?" he repeated. "You suggest letting machines handle four-dimensional data?" "Yes," Evan said simply. One alien in the crowd called out, "Humans barely manage their own systems." Another added, "They still use linear interfaces." The speaker raised a hand to silence them. "You are human," he said, studying Evan. "Your species is known for crude but fast solutions. This is not one of those problems." Evan did not argue. He looked back at the scanner. The warning symbols flashed faster. "Automation would collapse the predictive layers," the speaker continued. "This device requires conscious correction, instinct, intuition." Evan nodded slowly. "That's what's breaking it," he said. The laughter stopped. The speaker's eyes narrowed. "Explain." Evan pointed at the frozen rings. "You're correcting noise," he said. "But the noise is part of the data. You keep forcing it into stable shapes. The scanner keeps fighting back." The technicians exchanged looks. "That is impossible," one said. "We have operated this system for decades." "And how often does it fail like this?" Evan asked. No one answered. The machine hummed again, weak and uneven. The speaker hesitated, then made a sharp gesture. "Human," he said, "you may observe the interface. Nothing more." Evan raised an eyebrow. "Observe?" "You will not touch the controls," the speaker said firmly. "This is not a toy." Evan nodded. "That's fine." A small platform slid forward from the stage, forming a viewing space near the scanner's base. Evan stepped onto it. Up close, the machine was even more chaotic. Data streams overlapped in strange ways. Correction loops fed into prediction loops. It reminded him of an early human system. Powerful but badly organized. He did not reach for the controls. Instead, he tapped his wrist. A thin screen of light appeared, barely noticeable. The technicians scoffed. "He thinks a personal device can read this?" one muttered. Evan ignored them. He let his device listen. Not to the data itself, but to the pattern of corrections, how often they occurred, how strong they were. The scanner reacted immediately. One of the rings twitched. A technician shouted, "He is interfering!" "I am not touching anything," Evan said. The device on his wrist glowed softly. It was not sending commands. It was organizing. The warning symbols flickered, then paused. The scanner's hum steadied. The light threads slowly began to move again. The crowd fell silent. The technicians stared at their panels. Alignment is stabilizing, one whispered. That's impossible, another said. The alien speaker stepped closer, eyes fixed on Evan. What did you do? He demanded. Evan lowered his wrist slightly. I just sorted the feedback, he said. Your system talks too much to itself. The scanner's rings resumed rotation, slowly at first, then smoother. The warning message faded. A new display appeared above the machine, showing clean, stable projections. Gasps filled the hall. The speaker's confident mask cracked. You were told not to interfere, he said. I didn't, Evan replied. I didn't change anything. I just listened. The scanner gave a clear, steady tone. Fully operational. For the first time since the demonstration began, the machine was quiet. Too quiet. The alien speaker looked from the scanner to Evan, then back again. Around them, the audience buzzed with shock and confusion. The speaker took a slow breath. What? He said carefully. Are you? Evan met his gaze. Just human, he said. And somewhere deep within the scanner, unseen by anyone in the hall, a new pattern began to form. The hall was quiet, but tension ran thick in the air. The aliens, tall and proud, were staring at Evan with expressions that mixed shock, anger, and disbelief. The technicians fumbled with their controls, as if the human had stolen their secret skill by merely observing. The crowd of different species watched silently, curiosity mixed with awe. No one had expected a human to do what Evan just did. One of the technicians, a slender alien with translucent skin, finally spoke. His voice was sharp and nervous. This is impossible. No human should be able to even read the scanner, let alone stabilize it. Evan looked at him calmly. I didn't read it. I watched the patterns. Your machine is reacting to your corrections, not reality. It fights itself. I just made it quiet enough to see it properly. The technician blinked rapidly, confusion written across his face. Watching patterns? You mean you use some kind of device? Evan tapped the side of his wrist. Just a simple device. Nothing that touches your machine directly. It only listens. The alien speaker, still trying to maintain authority, raised a hand. Human, you will leave immediately. This is not your place. You have interfered with restricted technology. You have violated the protocol. Evan shrugged. I didn't interfere. I only watched. It seems you underestimate humans. Another alien, small and spindly, floated closer. We should report this. We cannot allow a human to manipulate this scanner in any way. Evan's gaze moved across the room. He noticed subtle details the aliens hadn't. The way their hands twitched when corrections were applied. How the machine slowed and hesitated when certain sequences were repeated. Their pride made them blind to their own errors. He said quietly, almost to himself, but loud enough for the nearest aliens to hear, your machine doesn't need more corrections. It needs understanding. A murmur went through the crowd. Whispers spread. Some species exchanged surprised glances. Humans were often underestimated, but rarely this bold. The alien speaker's face tightened, and he gestured sharply at the technicians. Explain to me exactly what this human has done, he demanded. One technician stepped forward, his voice shaking. It is like he understands the flow of the machine without touching it. The data, the feedback loops, all of it. He sees it differently. He made it calm without using any control. Another added, it is as if he simplified something we believed too complex to touch. Evan finally spoke. You make things harder than they are. You add layers and corrections because you think your minds are not fast enough, but your machine is faster than all of you. You only need to listen, that's all. The speaker took a step closer, his voice lowered, almost to a growl. You are a human. You think in ways our species cannot understand. You could have broken the scanner. You could have ruined years of research. How did you learn this? Evan smiled faintly. Observation and logic. nothing more. Humans have solved problems like this for a long time, even without advanced machines. The technicians were looking at each other, disbelief written in every line of their faces. Their fingers hovered over the controls, unsure if they should touch anything. The machine's lights pulsed slowly, like it was breathing, finally stable again. The crowd began to realize something incredible. The scanner, which had seemed untouchable, was quiet and functional now. The human had not only fixed it in a way, he had simplified it, made it usable, made it understandable. One young alien in the crowd floated closer, curiosity overcoming caution. "Human, can you? Show us?" Evan looked at him and shook his head. "Not yet. It takes time to see properly. Watching once is not enough. You have to understand the flow before you can touch it safely." The alien speaker's face darkened. "You have done enough. Step away. You are not allowed to manipulate restricted systems. Leave now or face consequences." Evan didn't move. He studied the scanner quietly, noticing small patterns in its pulses, the exact moments when the technicians intervened unnecessarily. He thought about the possibilities. If the data could be mapped and simplified, then anyone could understand it. Anyone could use it. The implications were enormous. One of the technicians whispered to the speaker, "Maybe he sees a way to use the scanner without complex training." The speaker's eyes narrowed. "Do not suggest such madness. This human is dangerous, but only because he is unpredictable. He cannot be allowed to control anything." Evan finally spoke again. "Joyce! You could make this simpler. You don't need all the layers and corrections. If you focus on the data itself, not the adjustments, the machine can do more than you think." The technicians looked stunned. The speaker's face turned red with anger. "Enough! You will leave. Immediately." Evan took one last look at the scanner. He noticed a small energy fluctuation that none of the aliens had seen. It was subtle, almost invisible, but it hinted at something deeper in the machine. He made a mental note. He started to step down from the platform, but the crowd was now divided. Some whispered in admiration, others in fear. The scanner, once a symbol of alien superiority, now seemed vulnerable. A human had proven it. As Evan walked away, he felt the weight of every pair of eyes on him. Not all were friendly. Some were curious, some hostile, and some seemed to plot. He understood that he had changed the perception of humans in the hall forever. Outside the platform, he paused. His device had quietly recorded the scanner's patterns. It was simple, but it would allow him to study the flows in his own time. He could see what the aliens could not, that their technology, while advanced, was rigid, fragile in ways they did not understand. One of the smaller aliens approached him. "Human, why are you not afraid?" Evan smiled faintly. "I have seen worse. And besides, sometimes fear makes you blind to solutions that are right in front of you." The alien tilted its head, confused, then floated back. Evan turned and walked toward the exit. His mind was already racing. If he could map the scanner's patterns, he could create a tool that would let him, and anyone else, see the data clearly. A tool that didn't need years of training or alien minds. The technician closest to the scanner muttered to his colleague, "He might be a threat. Not just to us, but to the coalition itself." The other nodded, eyes wide. "We have to report this immediately." The speaker, standing tall, watched Evan disappear into the crowd. He clenched his fists. "This human, he cannot be allowed to do anything else. He has interfered with the highest technology we possess. He will pay for this insolence." But Evan did not care. He was already thinking about how to turn what he had learned into something usable. If the scanner's data could be simplified, mapped, and shared, then humans, and any other species, would no longer be limited by alien arrogance. And the thought made him smile. Somewhere in the station, security forces moved. They whispered about the human who had touched the impossible. The coalition would want to control him. They would try to stop him. But Evan was not afraid. He had a plan. He turned a corner and slipped into a quiet hallway. The sounds of the exhibition hall faded behind him, his mind focused entirely on the scanner's patterns, the flows of data and the possibilities that lay ahead. The scanner, now fully operational, pulsed quietly in the hall, oblivious to what had just happened. But for the first time, it was not in complete control of the aliens. The human had seen the rhythm beneath the chaos. And he would return to it soon, not as a guest, not as a student, but as someone who understood it in a way no one else had. And somewhere in the depths of his mind, Evan already imagined a future where this knowledge was not just for him. The thought was dangerous, thrilling, and liberating all at once. And it was only the beginning. Evan returned to his small quarters in the station, a narrow room with only a table, a few screens, and a small window looking out at the endless stars. He placed his wrist device on the table and opened the data it had recorded from the scanner. Hundreds of streams of information appeared, glowing softly, each one representing a layer of time and probability. To anyone else it would have been impossible to read, but to Evan it made sense. The patterns were clear. Once the noise was sorted, he leaned back and let his mind run through the possibilities. The aliens thought the scanner was theirs alone because it required mental skill, but in reality, it was just a machine. A very advanced machine, yes, but a machine nonetheless, and machines could be understood, simplified, and made usable. Evan smiled faintly. If he could make this information readable, almost anyone could use it. Not just elite aliens, not just trained technicians. Every species could see the four-dimensional world clearly, with no years of study required. He began to work. Slowly at first, he wrote small routines that could translate the chaotic patterns into visual layers. Each layer could be rotated, adjusted, or highlighted. Probabilities that once took hours for the coalition to interpret now became clear lines and graphs. Evan tapped a few keys, and the streams of light on his device began to form clean, simple shapes. He could see where the machine's predictions had gaps, where it had been hiding its own mistakes. He realized something even more incredible. The scanner had blind zones, parts of time and probability that no one had ever observed. The coalition thought the machine was perfect, but it wasn't. It had limits that even the aliens could not see. A knock at his door made him pause. He quickly minimized the data streams. The door slid open, and a small alien, not much taller than a human, peeked inside. Its skin was golden, and its eyes were wide with curiosity. "Human," it said quietly, "what are you doing?" "We were told not to touch restricted technology. You could be punished." Evan looked at it and smiled. "I'm not touching the scanner. I'm only looking at what it did and trying to understand it. There is nothing here to punish." The alien floated in and sat down. "But why?" "You could get us all in trouble. The coalition will not forgive this. They are very strict about their secrets." Evan leaned forward. "I want to see if it can be made simpler. If the scanner can be understood, it should be available to more people. It's not just a weapon, it's knowledge. Knowledge should not be hidden." The small alien tilted its head. "But the coalition thinks you are dangerous. You already interfered. Why would you continue?" Evan paused. "Because someone has to. They think only they can control the future. But that isn't right. The scanner shows possibilities, not decisions. If everyone can see them, then everyone can prepare. Everyone can choose. That changes everything." The alien shivered slightly, not from cold, but from fear. "You could be stopped. You could be punished severely." Evan shrugged. Then I'll be careful. But I won't stop. The world, every world, deserves to know." He turned back to his device and began to work more intensely. Hours passed as he created the framework for what could become an app, a tool that would translate four-dimensional scans into something anyone could understand. He tested it repeatedly, making sure it was stable, readable, and safe. Each iteration simplified the complexity further, removing layers that were unnecessary and revealing what really mattered. Probabilities, timelines, and outcomes became like maps. He could rotate them, zoom in and out, and highlight anomalies with just a few gestures. It was elegant, and most importantly, it worked. He stopped to think about what would happen if this app spread. The aliens had relied on their exclusivity for power. If any species could access the scanner's insights, that power would crumble. Wars, negotiations, trade, and exploration would all change. Civilization could grow faster, mistakes could be avoided, and smaller species could finally compete. Humans could finally show the galaxy that intelligence, creativity, and simplification mattered as much as raw power. Evan's thoughts were interrupted by a new message on his device. It was from the station's network, a small ping from an automated feed monitoring scanner activity. It showed that Coalition security had already noticed anomalies in the scanner's control logs. They were suspicious. They would want to find the human who had stabilized it. He smiled faintly. They would look for someone else. The small size of his device and the simplicity of his code made him almost invisible. But he would not stop. He had more work to do. The hours passed quickly as Evan refined his creation. By the time he was done, the device had become a prototype app, capable of visualizing and simplifying the scanner's output. He could isolate layers, rotate timelines, highlight probabilities, and even flag anomalies. The app could run on small devices, not just the massive scanner. Essentially, it could put the power of the four-dimensional scanner into the hands of anyone with access to a simple device. He leaned back tired but satisfied. He knew what he had made was dangerous. In the wrong hands, it could destabilize the Coalition. But he also knew it could empower countless species, including humans, to make better decisions, to prepare for the future, and to break free from the dominance of the powerful aliens. A knock at the door startled him. It was another alien, taller and more imposing, a member of the Coalition itself. Its face was stern. "Human, it is not safe for you to be alone with this knowledge. We must speak." Evan did not flinch. "I am aware. But I am not harming anyone. I am only organizing information." The alien stepped closer. "You have changed the machine's behavior. That is interference. You cannot claim innocence." Evan held his gaze. "I did not touch the machine. I only observed it and understood it. That is all." The alien narrowed its eyes. "Observation is also dangerous when it leads to simplification." Your mind works differently, human. That is clear. But your actions could change the balance of power." Evan nodded. Yes, it could. But it could also give everyone a fair chance. That is why I do it." The alien said nothing for a moment, studying him. Then it turned and floated away. Evan watched it leave, feeling a mix of relief and anticipation. He knew they would not leave him alone for long. The Coalition would come sooner or later. But for now, he had time to prepare, time to make the app better, safer, and ready for release. He returned to his work, refining the interface, improving the clarity of the data, and testing the visualizations repeatedly. Each test revealed new possibilities. He could predict potential conflicts, detect hidden patterns, and highlight decisions that could prevent disasters. The scanner had always been a tool for the elite, but now it could become a tool for everyone. Evan realized that he could do more than just visualize the data. He could create a system that allowed any species to interact with the four-dimensional information intuitively. He could make it touchable, rotatable, understandable without special training. The possibilities thrilled him. He imagined explorers, scientists, diplomats, and ordinary citizens all using the app to see what was hidden, to prepare for challenges, and to make better decisions. The night passed slowly. Evan barely slept, consumed by the possibilities of his creation. He tested different scenarios, different methods of visualization, and ways to make the app secure yet accessible. By dawn, he had a working prototype that could be run on any small device and could translate the scanner's complex data into a format almost anyone could understand. He leaned back, exhausted but satisfied. He had done what no human or alien had thought possible. He had simplified the impossible, and in doing so, he had opened a door to a future that could belong to everyone, not just the powerful few. The station outside continued its routine. oblivious to the change happening in a small room. Ships docked and undocked, aliens moved through corridors, and the Coalition security forces were already discussing the anomalies in the scanner. They would search for the human who had disrupted their prized technology. But Evan was ready. His app was portable, discreet, and ready to be shared if he chose. He looked at the device on his wrist, the streams of light still pulsing softly, and knew that everything had changed. The scanner was no longer just a machine of the Coalition. It was something more, and humans, once dismissed as simple and weak, were now capable of touching the very edges of impossible knowledge. Evan smiled faintly, a spark of excitement in his eyes. This was only the beginning. The human mind had found a way to turn alien arrogance into opportunity. And soon, the galaxy would see just how dangerous and brilliant that could be. Evan had spent the past days refining his app in secret. The small room in the station had become a hub of lights and screens, each one showing layers of probability and future paths. He had not slept much, but he felt alive, more alert than ever. Every movement in the data, every pattern that unfolded, was a step closer to something new, something powerful. He knew the Coalition was watching. Their networks had already flagged the anomalies he had caused with the scanner. Security teams were tracing patterns, trying to find who had disrupted their most guarded technology. They did not know it was a human. They did not know that human could simplify what they thought was too complex for outsiders. Evan had decided it was time to test the app beyond his room. He connected it to a secondary device that could interface with the station's public networks, carefully avoiding the Coalition's monitoring protocols. It was risky, but he needed data from other systems to ensure the app worked universally. He tapped a command and waited as the streams of data filled the screens. Probabilities, predictions, and timelines appeared in clear visual maps. The app translated the chaotic four-dimensional output into something readable. He could see the paths of starship traffic, the potential outcomes of minor political negotiations, and even the likelihood of small accidents across the station. A soft knock made him look up. It was the golden-skinned alien who had first approached him in curiosity. "Human, they are searching for you. The Coalition has been discussing the disruptions you caused. They will come soon." Evan nodded calmly. "I know. That is why I need to finish this test. If the app works beyond the scanner, it will not matter who finds me in it. Knowledge cannot be stopped." The alien's eyes widened. "You are bold, but do you understand the danger? If they find out what you are doing, you could be imprisoned or worse." Evan smiled faintly. "Then I must be smarter than they are. I always have to be." He returned to the screens, adjusting layers and refining the visualization. The data from the secondary devices flowed in smoothly, showing that his app could interpret information from multiple sources at once. It could combine timelines, detect anomalies, and present predictions in an intuitive way. He realized something terrifying and exciting at the same time. By observing patterns across multiple devices, he could see blind spots in the Coalition's own predictions. There were areas they could not see, gaps they assumed were empty, but the app revealed them clearly. Hidden within the machine, in the streams of data, were moments of potential collapse, errors the Coalition had never noticed. Entire sectors of the galaxy were invisible to their predictive technology. The realization hit him hard. The Coalition had been hiding parts of reality from the galaxy. They controlled information, shaping what other species could know about the future. That was the real power of the scanner. It was not just a tool. It was a weapon. Evan leaned back, considering the implications. The app could expose these hidden zones. It could reveal secrets the Coalition had kept for decades. But doing so would make him a target. Powerful beings, armed with advanced technology, would come after him. The station could become a battlefield. And yet, the human mind saw an opportunity. Knowledge, once released, could not be contained. The golden-skinned alien floated closer. "You are playing with fire, human. Even if the app works, if they realize its potential, you will be hunted." Evan nodded. "I know, but some things are worth the risk. People should not be kept in darkness because a few believe they own the future." The alien looked doubtful but said nothing. Evan returned his attention to the data streams. He began mapping the coalition's blind spots, highlighting the missing probabilities. His device translated the scanner's hidden zones into visible areas on the screen. Where the coalition had seen perfection, he saw gaps. Where they had seen control, he saw fragility. Hours passed. Evan worked tirelessly, refining the app to make it faster, clearer, and more intuitive. Every visual element was tested, every layer optimized. He even added an interactive mode, allowing the user to rotate timelines, examine outcomes, and isolate anomalies with simple gestures. What had been restricted knowledge, understood only by a few elite aliens, was now available to anyone who could access a small device. As the sun of a distant star rose over the station, Evan paused. He knew the moment of exposure was near. He had connected a limited version of the app to the public network. Slowly, alien devices began receiving simplified streams of the scanner data. Just enough to test without full release. The results were immediate. A few minor species, untrained and unnoticed by the coalition, began interacting with the data. Their reactions were cautious but amazed. The app worked exactly as he hoped, but the coalition was not blind yet. Alarms sounded across the station. Security nodes pinged anomalies. The alien speaker who had confronted him before appeared on a holographic display. His voice was cold and sharp. "Human, your actions are not acceptable. You have interfered with restricted technology and are now exposing critical data. You will be apprehended immediately." Evan smiled faintly. "I am not harming anyone. I am only showing what already exists." "The knowledge is not mine. The scanner belongs to all who can understand it." The display went dark. Evan knew that within moments the coalition would deploy security teams to find him. They would try to shut down the app to prevent further dissemination, but he had anticipated this. The app's network code was distributed and encrypted. Even if they found him, they could not stop the information from spreading. It was too late for containment. He quickly packed a small portable device containing the app's core and moved to a maintenance corridor. The station's network allowed him to travel unnoticed while security focused on the exhibition hall. His device pulsed with the streams of simplified data, ready for the next phase. As he navigated the corridors, he realized the full implications. The coalition's control over the future was crumbling. Smaller species now had access to the same insights the elite had hoarded for decades. Knowledge was leveling the playing field. Wars could be predicted and prevented. Disasters could be avoided. Decisions could be made with clarity previously thought impossible. But the coalition would not give up easily. They had power, resources, and influence. They would try to destroy the app, to hunt him down, and to control what he had learned. Evan understood that he had become a target. Yet he also knew that he had changed the balance of power forever. He paused at a junction, looking at the map projected on his device. It highlighted areas where the coalition had blind spots, places where their predictions were weak. These zones were now visible to anyone who had the app. Entire systems, previously controlled by the coalition's secrecy, were now open to observation. The human mind, once dismissed as simple, had turned alien arrogance into vulnerability. Evan allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. He had done what no one expected. A single human, with logic, observation, and patience, had simplified what the most powerful species in the galaxy thought impossible. And in doing so, he had created a tool that could change the future of countless worlds. The sound of distant alarms reminded him that his time was limited. Security teams would soon search every corridor, every room. He had to move quickly. But the app's prototype was safe, encrypted, and portable. Even if he were captured, the knowledge could not be taken away. It had already begun to spread. He continued through the maintenance corridors, careful to avoid sensors and patrols. He paused at intersections, listening for footsteps and scanning the networks for alerts. Every step brought him closer to safety and farther into the possibilities of his creation. The golden-skinned alien appeared beside him once more, almost silently. Human, they will not stop until they find you. You must be careful.
Evan nodded.
I know, but some things are worth the risk. The galaxy deserves to know the truth. They moved in silence for a while, the only sound being the faint hum of the station's energy conduits. Evan's mind raced with plans for the app's distribution. He thought of smaller species, diplomats, explorers, and even humans in distant colonies. All of them could benefit from understanding what had once been impossible to comprehend. He finally reached a secluded docking bay, small enough to avoid the Coalition's attention. His personal craft waited, silent and ready. He loaded the portable device with the app into the storage compartment and took one last look at the station. The exhibition hall, now filled with chaos and confusion, was visible in the distance. The Coalition's arrogance had been exposed, and their control weakened. Evan boarded his craft and initiated the launch sequence. As the engines hummed to life, he felt a mix of relief and anticipation. The next steps would be crucial. The app would need to be shared carefully, securely, and strategically. The galaxy would change, and not everyone would welcome it. As the craft left the station and entered the open void of space, Evan allowed himself a moment to reflect. He had done something unprecedented. He had simplified the impossible, exposed the weaknesses of the mighty, and created a tool that could empower anyone with the curiosity and intelligence to use it. The Coalition had underestimated humans once again, and now they would have to face the consequences. Evan looked out at the stars, stretching endlessly before him. Knowledge was no longer a weapon for the few. It was a gift, a challenge, and a responsibility. And he, a single human, had become the catalyst for a future the galaxy had never imagined. Evan drifted through the quiet void of space, his small craft moving steadily between stars. The station he had left behind was still teeming with tension. The Coalition had discovered the anomalies in the scanner and were searching for the human who had dared to interfere. Security teams combed the corridors and alerts rang across the network, but Evan was not worried. He had planned every step carefully, and his portable device carried the key to a new future. Inside his craft, the app displayed streams of simplified four-dimensional data. Each layer was clear, organized, and ready for interaction. Evan watched as simulated timelines showed potential outcomes for various events across the galaxy. He could rotate them, zoom in on details, and flag unusual patterns. The Coalition believed they held the ultimate power, but now Evan could see what they could not. He realized that this knowledge, if shared wisely, could shift entire civilizations. He knew that once the Coalition learned the app's potential, they would try to destroy it. They had relied on secrecy for decades. Without control, their influence would crumble. Yet Evan also understood the responsibility he carried. If the app reached the wrong hands too soon, it could create chaos. Knowledge without guidance could be as dangerous as ignorance. His thoughts were interrupted by a soft beep. A message had arrived from an anonymous source, a minor species that had begun interacting with the app. The message read simply, "It works. The patterns are clear. We can see what the Coalition cannot. Thank you." Evan smiled faintly. Even the smallest species could now act on insights previously hidden from them. That was power. That was fairness, Mayan. But there was little time to celebrate. Evan knew the Coalition would escalate their efforts. They would not allow this to continue. They would deploy ships, agents, and advanced technology to hunt him down. He had to be careful, and he had to move quickly. He initiated a secure connection from his craft to distant networks, sharing the app cautiously, layer by layer, data. Spread to selected users, carefully chosen to test the limits of the system and ensure stability. Evan monitored every connection, making sure the information was delivered safely and without revealing his location. He wanted the galaxy to benefit, but he also wanted to survive. Hours turned into days as he refined distribution methods. The app became more than a tool. It became a framework for understanding. Civilizations could predict conflicts, detect hidden threats, and plan ahead with clarity. Previously hidden blind zones were now visible. Entire sectors of space, once invisible to the Coalition's control, were now open to observation. The balance of power was shifting, slowly but inevitably. Evan paused to consider the Coalition's possible reaction. They would not act violently immediately, fearing exposure, but once they realized the extent of the app's reach, they would attempt to reclaim control. They might try to track him down, sabotage the networks, or even destroy entire nodes of information. He had to anticipate every move, every reaction. He began to develop a failsafe, a secure distributed system that could continue operating even if he were captured or killed. The app could survive, spreading knowledge autonomously, ensuring that no single entity could control or suppress it. The idea thrilled him. The power of the scanner, once a weapon for the elite, could now serve everyone, equally and fairly. Meanwhile, reports reached him from minor species across the galaxy. Some were cautious, testing the app in small ways. Others were bold, experimenting with predictions and potential outcomes. The results were astonishing. Civilizations began preparing for events the Coalition had never predicted. Conflicts were avoided. Supply chains improved. Even small diplomatic agreements became more efficient. Humans, once dismissed as weak and primitive, were now at the center of a quiet revolution. But the Coalition was far from idle. They began issuing commands, sending teams to investigate disruptions, and issuing warnings to member species. Rumors of a human controlling the scanner's secrets began spreading. Some laughed, thinking it impossible. Others worried, realizing that the balance of power could indeed shift. The human mind, underestimated for so long, had become a new variable in the galaxy's equations.
Evan knew confrontation was inevitable.
He would have to face Coalition leaders eventually, not just as a fugitive, but as someone who could challenge their assumptions. He began to prepare mentally. The app had given him leverage. It had revealed weaknesses and blind spots. He could negotiate, or at least ensure survival, if confrontation came. But he also understood the risk. The Coalition would not tolerate a human who had disrupted their secrets. He continued to expand the app's capabilities. Predictive models, scenario planning, anomaly detection, and probability visualization were all integrated into a single, accessible interface. Minor species could now interact with the scanner's data without needing elite training. Even humans in remote colonies could access simplified layers of insight. Knowledge was no longer a weapon for the few. It was a tool for everyone. Days passed, and the galaxy began to notice subtle changes. Strategic decisions previously dominated by Coalition predictions were now influenced by a wider array of perspectives. Small species acted with confidence. Human settlements applied insights to avoid disaster. Trade routes became safer. Diplomatic negotiations became more precise. The ripple effects were growing, slowly undermining the Coalition's control. Evan reflected on his choices. He had made enemies and allies without direct confrontation. His app had become a force for change, yet he remained unseen, operating from the shadows. The Coalition's arrogance had blinded them to the simplest truth. Intelligence, creativity, and observation could surpass power alone. A sudden alert from the network interrupted his thoughts. Coalition ships were moving toward a remote relay station he had used. They had detected unusual activity. Evan quickly calculated trajectories, predicting possible interception points. He realized that containment efforts were increasing. Time was limited. He initiated a new distribution protocol, ensuring that the app's core would continue functioning even if nodes were destroyed. Knowledge would survive even if he did not. He felt a thrill of satisfaction. The human mind, dismissed and underestimated, had turned alien arrogance into vulnerability. And it could continue even beyond his control. As he navigated through the void, Evan considered the Coalition's next moves. They could attempt capture, sabotage, or direct confrontation. He would have to be ready, yet he also knew that once the app reached a critical mass, no single species could control it. Knowledge had been freed. That alone was a victory. The stars stretched endlessly before him. The galaxy, vast and complex, was now more open to understanding. The scanner, once the symbol of elite power, had become a tool for all. Evan allowed himself a rare moment of calm, knowing that the next steps would be dangerous, but necessary. The coalition would come, but the galaxy would be ready. The human mind had changed everything, and the future was now wider, brighter, and shared. And in that shared knowledge lay hope for a new era, one that the coalition could no longer dominate or predict. Evan drifted through space, the small craft moving silently between stars. The galaxy was vast, yet he felt connected to everything through the streams of data flowing across his device. The app was active, functioning perfectly on multiple networks, and spreading insights to those who could use them. Each minor species that accessed it grew more confident, making decisions that would have been impossible before. Civilizations began to prepare for events the coalition had tried to hide, adapting and thriving in ways previously thought impossible. Evan leaned back, observing the patterns. He could see the ripple effects of his work, the quiet changes in trade routes, diplomatic decisions, and exploration efforts. The coalition's grip on the galaxy was weakening, not because of force, but because knowledge was now shared. Blind zones that once favored the coalition were now visible, and the galaxy was learning to act independently. He knew the coalition would not accept this quietly. They had already attempted to trace his craft and intercept signals. Their influence was strong, and they were formidable, but the human mind was unpredictable and adaptable. Evan had learned to think several steps ahead. He had created fail-safe systems, decentralized distribution protocols, and encrypted networks. The app could survive even if he were captured or destroyed. Knowledge was now autonomous. The golden-skinned alien appeared beside him, floating silently. Human, they are aware now. The coalition has increased patrols and is mobilizing fleets. They will come for you. Evan nodded. I know, but it is too late to stop what is started. The app has reached enough minds to make containment impossible. Knowledge cannot be erased once it spreads. The alien looked troubled. But you are only one being. How will you survive their pursuit? Evan smiled faintly. Survival is secondary. The future is what matters. The app is alive in the networks. Even if I am captured, the knowledge will continue. That is more important than my safety. He monitored the networks, observing reactions from across the galaxy. Minor species were now coordinating efforts to explore previously restricted areas. Humans in distant colonies applied insights to prevent accidents and improve trade. The ripple effects were spreading fast, quietly undermining the coalition's authority. Information, once hoarded, had become a tool for the many. Evan paused, considering the ethical implications. He had created a system that could predict conflicts, disasters, and outcomes, but it could also be misused if accessed carelessly. He refined the app further, adding safety protocols, restricting certain sensitive data, and ensuring that insights could guide without controlling. Civilization would have freedom to act, but with understanding. Suddenly, a visual alert appeared on the main screen. Coalition ships had detected his presence near a minor relay station and were moving to intercept. Evan's craft was small, agile, and well-shielded, but he knew they had advanced tracking systems. He quickly analyzed potential escape routes, calculating trajectories, gravitational pulls, and predicted interception points. He engaged the craft's stealth systems, moving through asteroid fields and nebula clouds to avoid detection. The coalition's ships adjusted their courses, searching relentlessly. But Evan was always one step ahead, using the patterns from his app to anticipate their moves. Knowledge, once translated into action, became a weapon in its own right. Hours passed as he navigated carefully, avoiding patrols and maintaining communication with the decentralized networks. The app continued to spread, reaching species previously untouched by the scanner. Entire civilizations were learning to see possibilities and plan for them. The coalition's attempts to control information were failing. Evan realized that the galaxy was entering a new era. The scanner was no longer a tool of oppression. It was a source of empowerment. Humans, long underestimated, had proven that intelligence, creativity, and observation could rival brute strength and established authority. The coalition had relied on secrecy and fear, but the human mind had turned these into opportunities. As he moved deeper into uncharted space, Evan allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. He thought of the species now gaining access to knowledge, of decisions improved, conflicts avoided, and futures altered. The galaxy was changing, quietly but irrevocably. He had not sought recognition or power, only the chance to share what was hidden, and in doing so he had changed the rules forever. The golden-skinned alien appeared beside him again. "You have done more than any of us imagined, human. The galaxy may never forgive the Coalition for this disruption." Evan nodded. "Perhaps. But they cannot stop it. Knowledge is stronger than fear. Once shared, it cannot be taken away." He activated a final sequence on his device. The app's core was encrypted, decentralized, and distributed across multiple networks. It could continue functioning even without him. The failsafe ensured that no single entity could control it. Knowledge was now free. The Coalition would try to retaliate, but they were too late. Species that had once been under their control now acted independently, using insights from the app to make better choices. Balance of power had shifted. Evan allowed himself a faint smile. Humans had once been dismissed as weak and simple. Now one human mind had turned alien arrogance into opportunity. The galaxy was no longer dominated by secrecy and fear. It was guided by understanding and shared insight. He looked out at the stars, endless and bright. The future was uncertain, but it was open to all. The scanner, once a symbol of elite control, had become a tool for civilization. The human mind had proven itself capable of touching the impossible, of turning complexity into clarity, and of changing the galaxy forever. Evan engaged the craft's engines, moving toward distant stars, leaving the station, the Coalition, and their fragile arrogance behind. Knowledge would continue to spread, insights would guide decisions, and the galaxy would act with a clarity it had never known before. The human mind had started a quiet revolution, and it could never be undone.